Chris Grier met with the media yesterday at the Combine. And this video, if you tell by the title, we're going to be talking Chris Grier a little bit because he's been doing it for a hot minute with the Miami Dolphins, and it gets to a point where some things need to be held accountable. What is up, Finn fans? We got a lot to talk about today. Most of it's going to be about Chris Grier. Omar Kelly wrote a fantastic article kind of talking about Chris Grier and the offseason decisions and, you know, all that good stuff. And we're going to go over the transcripts of what he said yesterday at the Combine. And also I got some grades for the Miami Dolphins, which is pretty cool. But before we jump into that, I do have to shout out today's sponsor, and that is BetUS. I've talked about them a lot. They are a great betting site, real reliable, and they've been rocking with me all season and now all off season. Fantastic. But without me blabbering about it, let's hear what they have to say.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Again, BetUS, thank you so much for sponsoring. This is the site. Again, they have a website. They do not have an app yet, but they have a website. And this is their app, their website. I just said they don't have an app, and I said there's their app. They have so many different sports you can bet on. Not only that, they have live betting, casino, racebook, promotions. They have a YouTube channel, BetUS TV. Link is in the description. Go check that out. But, you know, we got football coming up. I talked to you guys about that. You could bet on free agents and see where they kind of land. Like Austin Eckler, if not the Chargers. They think the Ravens. Baker Mayfield. They think the Falcons. Calvin Ridley, they're thinking the Falcons as well. Interesting. Derrick Henry. Where they got the Dolphins on Derrick Henry? Then down here, 2,200. Bump that up, BetUS. Bump that up. But you can use the site for many different things. It's a great, reliable site. So go check them out. And again, click the link in the description. You get 125% if you use the promo code JOIN125. First 3 months, up to $2,500. Go check them out. So we're going to talk about a few things. But the thing I want to talk about is the Miami Dolphins report card. That's a thing now. They get ranked by the NFLPA essentially on, you know, stuff that qualifies. And I will go over that real quick. But the Miami Dolphins are the top-ranked team in the 2024 report card. Club owner Stephen Ross is the highest-graded club owner in our survey, receiving a near-perfect score. The club's owners rank reflects the strong performance in key areas that players care about, including the quality of the facilities, the comfort of the players' travel, and the quality and quantity of staff across multiple categories. The state-of-the-art facilities continue to impress, but more importantly are complemented by the number of quality trainers, strength coaches, and other support staff who help make the workplace experience one of the best across the league. More details and examples are in each section below. And if you look at it, Dolphins did pretty well. Treatment of families, essentially, they got 3rd out of 32, but how they treat their families when they come to the game, travel with them. Number 1 in food, number 2 in dietitian, number 3 in locker room, number 1 in training room, number 1 in training staff, number 1 in weight room, 2nd in strength coaches. I know a lot of people think that the strength and conditioning is the reason why we got injured so much. Not necessarily. Some of it was fluke stuff. Some of it was like the Jalen Phillips, that was fluke. That had nothing to do with anything. Team travel first. Head coach is 8th. Top 10 head coach by the players. And ownership is number 1. A lot of A's and a lot of 1s and some 2s and 3s trickled in. So the Miami Dolphins have a really good organization when it comes to taking care of their players. Now, I wanted to just bring that up because I thought it was really cool how high the Dolphins get praised. It's something that Stephen Ross put a lot of money in, and it is showing. Do I want to go with the we're going to go with the transcripts first, and then we'll go to Omar Kelly's article, because I want to hear what he had to say. And again, I'm going to read it to you because I can't hear the questions and all that stuff. Are you excited to see the salary cap bump? He says yes. Brandon Shore and Max, sorry if I butcher your name, Napolitano do a really good job of kind of forecasting what it would be over the last few years. We didn't have it that high. I don't think a lot of people did. It was good, but at the end of the day, you can't let that drive your decision. Still, it helps, but it still players-driven market, so you still work through that as you kind of go through it. As much as we hate Peacock and we hate on Thursdays, it's on Prime and all that stuff, that's what helps the cap go up, and that's what helps teams being able to keep their players. So as much as it sucks, it benefited the Dolphins and teams in general. Where do things stand between you and Tua, Tua's representatives, as you look for a long-term deal? He says, we've been in communication since the offseason began. We're going to talk to his agent here this week. Our goal is to try to get everything done. Ryan Williams has been great. Tua has been great. We'll see. There's no timeline on it at the end of the day. You know how the deals get done. They are complicated deals, and we're building a team through free agency as well. We'll work through it and see if we can get something done. They want it done before the start of training, before the start of free agency. They would like to have that cap space from his $23 million be knocked down to at least like 13 and get like 10 million in cap space. So as much as he says, you know, we're going to see how it goes, they want it done before the 11th, the 13th. So between the 11th and the 13th, they can come to agreements, but it's not official. The 13th, you have to be under the cap. So they probably want it done by the 13th. How would you categorize in terms of just laying the groundwork right now or making progress? Where do you think the talks are? He says, I appreciate the question, but I don't ever talk about where we are publicly in terms of all that stuff. Does the salary cap bump mean that quarterback salaries go up by 10%? Is that a direct correlation where maybe what Tua would have asked for may be different now? He says, I don't know. How is he going to answer that question? Do you believe that you guys can get a deal done this offseason? I think we're hopeful. When you go through these things, you guys have all been around and see the teams go through that. There are deals that are very rarely come together quickly. They want it done before the start of free agency. Both you and head coach Mike McDaniel used the phrase that defensive tackle Christian Wilkins has earned to be the right to free agency. Does that suggest you aren't inclined to apply the tag on him? He says, no, I think all options are on the table for us. I'm going to meet with Christian's agent this week. David and I have always had good conversations. David is Christian Wilkins' agent. I'm just being very transparent with it. He has earned it. He has had a great season. So we'll see what happens here as we talk over the next couple of weeks. They've been trying. I think he says that at some point. They have been trying to get him under contract for 2 off seasons. Last off season and the off season before that, he bet on himself and he won. What more do you need to see from Wilkins this year to solidify that extension? Like I've mentioned before, we had a great conversation and we were close to a deal last offseason. It didn't come together for us. We know who Christian is, the type of player, person and player, and what he brings to the organization. We'll see. Do you believe you have the resources to get a long-term deal or use the tag if you have to with defensive tackle Christian Wilkins? Yeah, we could, is all he said to that. There's not a lot to worry about that. Again, there's a lot of manipulation and changing that can be done. What does having a quarterback that's not on a rookie deal anymore do as far as affecting the rest of the roster building? All you guys have been around the league is when you guys, he says the same thing. To get guys, whether it's Tyreek or Bradley Chubb, etc., and also for us moving forward, we have a lot of good young players coming up too, like Jalen Waddle and Jalen Phillips. We have 5 or 6 too that we're talking to that are going to be candidates for possible extensions. Good, Grier, good. I've said this already. Get Waddle, Phillips, Holland under the get him under a new contract now. Don't wait till next year when it's, you either pick up the 5th-year option or you lose Javon Holland. I like that he says that. And also we have 5 or 6 guys too that we're talking to that are going to be candidates for possible extensions. It's interesting. Does that force you to say, hold on a second, we're not in every single thing anymore? We're not able to add Tyreek like we used to. It's a challenge, but I think the one thing Brandon Shore and Max Napolitano has done when we talk is we're always looking short-term and long-term in terms of having flexibility and how contracts are structured and stuff. I will say that. Brandon Shore makes these contracts really good, and they have an out at the right time, so I like that. Does concussion history play a role in considering Tua's contract? No, I think for us, every player deals with certain things, even as we've seen this year. You look at all the quarterback injuries around the league, which ain't wrong, and there are other quarterbacks and really good players that have had multiple season-ending injuries as well. It isn't, but also you got to put something in there. You can't just ride in there with somebody who, for the first time, played a full season and think he's going to keep doing it. On whether Jerome Baker will be a cap casualty and if he anticipates him on the roster, we'd love to have Baker here. He said, we'd love to have Baker here. I think the big thing for us was to have the new defensive staff come in, spend time with the team, watch the defense as a staff. Once we have those decisions with the defensive staff, Mike McDaniel will get together and then they will make a decision on the next couple of weeks. You don't got a couple of weeks. You got like 2, if that, which is a couple, Doug, but not even, because next week is what, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the 4th, and then you have that week, and then you have start of free agency. I don't got much time. What are your thoughts on the decision to part ways with Xavier Howard? Yeah, that was a tough one. Xavier and I had a long conversation because he was the 2nd player I drafted here in 2016. He and I have been through a lot of stuff here, and we're just talking about how proud I was from earlier when he first got here, some stuff we were doing behind the scenes to help become a better player and all that stuff. Well, we had a long discussion, understood it was a business decision. At the end of the day, we just felt it was right for him to have the opportunity for his agent to go see what's out there for him, but we didn't close the door on it. We're going to stay in communications as the process goes and see what happens. And we left the door open for him possibly to come back here too. That is interesting. So there is a possibility of getting X back. I bet you, as if the contract isn't crazy. So that's interesting. On if he has given Teron Armstead a date to make a decision on when he'll return. Now, this is interesting because I showed you guys an article that said that Teron Armstead is coming back. I even made a video about it. And I normally don't do those things unless, it's a credible source. And I think it was CBS Sports. And now supposedly he's saying Teron and I had a long conversation before he left for the Pro Bowl. He said he wanted to be fair to us. I completely respect it because I think he's earned that right. We just said we're going to talk before the start of the league year, and free agency happened, and he's going to let us know with plenty of time where he is so it doesn't affect us. So he hasn't told them if he's coming back or not, but it was reported that he said he is. What's going on there? Somebody asks, are you committed to using the 1st-round pick, or are you still open to possibly using it in a trade? Dolphins haven't had a 1st-round pick in 2 years. He says, I think you have to be open to everything. If it's possible of moving up or moving down or something and getting in a better position to get a player that we may say is a home run for us, we're definitely open to it. If someone wants to drop to our spot and we move down a few and pick up extra picks, we're very open to that as well. I wouldn't be upset with that. Get some extra picks. You don't have a 3rd or a 4th. Where do things stand right now with AVG? He says, we've been in touch with his agent. It's been good. He's been in the facility rehabbing like crazy and running around on his scooter. He's in a really good place. He's been working hard and will continue to talk to his agent. So he's there. So somebody asked him about the Mike Tannenbaum's whole trading Waddle, and he laughs. He says, no. As I said in the middle of the season, I have no thoughts of trading Jalen Waddle. We want him here for a long time, and we think he's a big part of our now and our future here. He's a great person on and off the field, and we still think as good as he is, he still has runway to keep getting better. It would be so dumb to trade Jalen Waddle. If you're going to trade anyone, and I'm not saying it's going to happen or it should happen, you're going to trade Tyreek Hill because Jalen Waddle's the future of this team. That's kind of some of the things that he said that I found interesting, especially with possibility of bringing back Xavier Howard, the named Waddle and Phillips, but then saying there's 5 other with possible extensions that they're contacting with. There's a lot of stuff he said in there that I found interesting. Now, Omar Kelly came out with this article on the 26th, which was Monday. Yes. And he says, time for the Dolphins to hold Chris Grier accountable. And that's why I titled the video the way I titled it, which I think I put 2024 Chris Grier's Make It or Break It year. So he says at this point, there's nobody else to blame for the Miami Dolphins' shortcoming as a franchise. Chris Grier, who's beginning his 25th season with the Miami Dolphins organization, 9th season as their team's general manager, and 6th at the top of the football decision-making, seemingly is entering a make it or break it season, which I find interesting because he noted what I've noticed, which is 9th as the team's general manager, but 6th at the top of the football decision making. It wasn't until 2018, 2019 is where he started making decisions without having Mike Tannenbaum to report to. Until now, he's been a franchise ultimate savior, master of blaming shifts, but we've reached yet another pivotal point. All that decisions are in his hands. Grier likely doubled down on the Dolphins' live for today approach to build an NFL team, which leans on veteran additions more than building through the draft. Soon we'll ask Stephen Ross to write substantial signing roster bonuses to create some spending power, which will be needed to extend lifespan on this roster. And essentially that's how it happens in a nutshell. Omar Kelly also wrote a fantastic article about what to do with Tyreek Hill's contract, and it's a lot of taking things, making it into signing bonuses that don't affect the cap space, but they still get their money. Grier's decision made this spring and summer regarding patchwork needed for the Dolphins roster will either validate that what he's building has staying power or will lead to the franchise destruction and inevitably reset because Miami's decision makers have made a mess of the team's salary cap, which is evident by the fact of most of this month will be spent trimming payroll. Grier's biggest challenge this offseason will be to keep it all together and do so by putting together a roster better than 2023's 11-6 team. Yes, 100% yes. You can't go back. You went 9-8, you went 11-6. You can't go back. You have to go, you have 12, 13 wins and win the division and win a playoff game. You can't go back. Because if you go back, then something needs to be done. At the end of 2024, the outcome of the season will determine if the roster that Grier built was a success or failure based on how far the team makes it into the postseason, considering Miami now owns the NFL's longest drought, which dates back to 2001. It's not just the NFL. It's all sports. Dolphins will be busy in Indy. He says the part of the reason the Dolphins will be one of the busiest franchises in Indy at the NFL Combine because the roster is vacant, 44 of 90 players under contract. Due to the team's numerous free agents, 28 of them, with the addition of now Emmanuel Ogbah, and the team being in its midst of cap crisis, which has the Dolphins negative $37.6 million over the salary cap after last week's release of Emmanuel Ogbah. Most roster purging is inevitable, and a few contract restructures are due. And tough decisions on what to do regarding Christian Wilkins and Tua, two of the team's leaders, top performers, captains, and franchise culture setters, are on the horizon. Wilkins was the first pick of this present rebuild. Miami wouldn't agree on a price for his services before last season because the Dolphins balked at the salary increase his peers are making and knocked the defensive tackle for not being a sack producer. And lo and behold, like Omar's about to say, Wilkins bet on himself and he won. 9 sacks. Even one of those decisions come with consequences, and it's Grier who will be forced to justify it to this fan base, whichever route Miami takes. Now, which Dolphins is worth an extension, he writes. Then there's the decisions on what to do with Tua, who is seeking a multi-year extension to replace the fifth-year option Miami triggered last season. Redoing Tua's deal would create an additional cap space, but it will also put the Dolphins in a strict diet in the future, one that necessary because the quarterback's $40 to $55 million annual salary eats up 15% or more of the salary cap. The foundation of the NFL roster needs to be built before the quarterback has his hands out. And the way Miami's finances look, that mission wasn't achieved because the Dolphins haven't had a laundry list of young players who are seeking raises in the upcoming weeks. Players like Robert Hunt, Raekwon Davis, Andrew Van Ginkel, Connor Williams, Brandon Jones, just to name a few, are free agents who want to be compensated for their contributions. And then there's a list of youngsters like Jalen Waddle, Jalen Phillips, Javon Holland wanting a new deal in the near future because of their rookie deals are expiring. Everyone has their hand out this summer, and it's on Grier to figure out who the Dolphins can pay and who they need to replace and what players to replace them with. And there's consequences to every deal that gets done and every deal that doesn't. At this point, there's only one person left to blame if this franchise falls short of everyone's expectation, and that's the man who's been around for a quarter of a century and has been in charge of steering the rebuild for more than half a decade. Oh, yeah. This is it. Like I said in the title, make or break year. This is it. Stephen Ross isn't going to be the owner for much longer. This is my personal opinion. He's getting up there in age, and he probably doesn't want to deal with this anymore. He doesn't want to deal with another rebuild. He doesn't want to deal with another tear down. We got to find this. We got to find that. And Chris Grier, yes, he didn't really get a stronghold on decision making until Tannenbaum left, but he's been with this team for a long time now. He's been a scout. And scouts are scouts. Like, if you want, go back and watch his reaction when the Dolphins drafted Ryan Tannehill. He didn't want to draft him. It's a quite funny video to watch. But since he started this with Brian Flores, tearing it down, getting 3 first-round picks, having all the cap space, and then the next following year having the picks again, multiple first-round picks, but then starting that season 1-7 and dealing with injuries, going out getting Isaiah Wynn injury-prone, going out and get Teron Armstead injury-prone, go out and get all of these players injury-prone, and then you sit there and you wonder, oh my God, why are we have no players that are healthy? It's because of what he does. It's because of the decisions he makes. So this is a make or break year for Chris Grier. If we fall on our face, if we don't make the playoffs, and I'm going to talk about this before the season starts, where I kind of expectations for the 2024 Miami Dolphins, but if we don't make the playoffs, it's going to be a complete rebuild. You can't go from 11-6 to not making the playoffs. Like, you can't do it. And you can't fire Chris Grier. They can, but you can't fire Chris Grier and then bring in a new GM to pair with Mike McDaniel, because GMs want to bring in their own head coach. So if Chris Grier's out, most likely McDaniel's out, and it's a complete rebuild. And then the new head coach you're bringing in, you got Tua under a long-term contract, but that's not his quarter. It just becomes a hot mess, and it all surrounds one guy who's still on this team, who has had so much decision-making over the past 5-6 years. That's Chris Grier. And the fact that, go back and watch when we started 1-7, I wanted both of them gone. I wanted Flores and Grier gone, and that was my reasoning. You had the cap space, you had the draft, you had 5 first-round draft picks, you had millions upon millions of dollars, and you started the season 1-7. So when Flores was fired, I'm like, well, they got to fire Grier too, and they didn't. Why? I don't know, but they didn't. It's a make or break year. Got to get it right. You put yourself in this hole. You put the cap space in this hole. You traded away draft picks because you were in a win now moment, but you didn't do it properly because your offensive line wasn't in a win now moment. Got to fix it. This is you. This is it. And you don't do it, I don't see you on the team next year. Comment below. Let me know what you think. What do you think about the Dolphins getting all passing grades, A's across the board? What are your thoughts on Chris Grier? What he said at the combine? If you want to watch the full, I think it's on their YouTube channel. And what are your thoughts on what Omar Kelly had to say? Do you think this is it? He needs to right the ship. Comment below, and I'll see you tomorrow. By usual, stay classy. FN's out.